We got some news to get into. Obviously, I was gone yesterday, and of course, Blizzard decided to shoot its load all over its audience and drop a bunch of news. So we got to get into this stuff. We got a lot of things to talk about. Player housing 11.1.5. That's right, the patch after the one we haven't gotten yet, with no announcement date for a release, and a bunch of other things in between. So let's get into this stuff. Here we go. Patch 11.1 is going to bring a vendor in raid that sells profession items. That's right. So if you're a profession Andy, this is very important for you. But even more importantly, if you are a leather profession Andy, you like the feeling of cold hard leather on your groin, well, this is going to affect you a little bit more than the others, because this vendor is going to be selling items that you currently sell in the auction house. That's right, you got the storm charged leather and gloom chinton. These are items that were previously being sold in the auction house and will now be available from a vendor for 6 gold and 50 silver. So that's obviously going to tank the worth of this item in the auction house for you. It's going to affect the, leather workers quite a bit. Now, this is on the PTR. Who knows if this is going to get changed? There's currently no limit on these items. Usually you'd see in parentheses here a little limit on some of this stuff if it actually had a limit. Well, there isn't one right now. So if this item does in fact become available on a what's it called? A vendor in raid, well, then it's going to be absolutely worthless for you. Sam, it's only worth 4 gold and 35 silver. Well, then I guess it's not a problem. Per stack or per one? Because then it does change things. But anyways, this is how it's going to be. I guess they're making it more expensive, so maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. I think leather workers are kind of screwed on this side of things. We'll see how the rest of everything shakes out. A 5th cartel. What's going on? Yeah, we just learned about the 4 cartels that we're going to be working with, gathering reputation with, getting geared out with, and stuff like that. Well, it turns out there's a 5th one. Is it a spoiler? I don't really think so. Isn't a blue post? It's I'll tell you guys a little bit about it. Notorious goblins like Monty Gaslow, Baron Marin, and more run each run a cartel. A secret 5th cartel awaits you in the wings. Now, this 5th cartel is aligned with what's his name, Bobby Kotick, the Gallywix guy. So obviously they're going to be bad, right? They're a bad cartel. They're known as the Dark Fuse Solutions. Interesting that the word dark is in their name. We don't know anything about them yet, but I'm assuming that they're aligned with the Void and all that other shit. Anyways, they follow Gallywix, supposedly protecting Gallywix and all of the treasures that he's gathered up, and we're going to be fighting them in the raid. Probably also, I would guess, in the new instance as well. We've already seen that thing run, and I don't remember seeing any Dark Fuse Solutions guys running around, but who knows? Maybe there's a story to be told in the background there. Anyways, these guys are going to be another cartel, and in fact, they are eventually going to switch sides. Now, this could be assumed that after we kill Gallywix, they're going to flip on us and actually become our friends in some way or another. But we will eventually earn reputation for them. And the interesting thing about them is there's some good items to be had from this reputation. So the Dark Fuse Demolisher is one of them, a badass mount. Obviously, the mounts are the things we care about most. If you look at this mount, maybe there's a hint at what these guys are all about. Dark Fuse, and what looks like what's going on here is a fusion between Old God Blood and the Void, right? We've seen images of kind of that Old God Blood mixed with the Void going on in some of the background of the Undermined images. Well, it looks like that's what these guys are using. Of course, it would make sense that a Gaslow-aligned group would in fact be chasing powers that they shouldn't be dabbling in, and it looks like here we got Void and Dark God, Old God Blood mixing together in this machine. So this is a machine you'll be able to get. Is this thing leaking from the ass? Hold on, yeah, it's leaking from the ass. Yeah, it is. Okay, it's also leaking from the crotch. Okay, we got a leaker. Yeah, this is good. All right, a nice mount. You want to get it maybe. Kind of cool. Yeah, and then here's another version of it as well. We got a red version of this mount that we've seen before. Pretty cool looking mounts. I love the black and red colorway, so this is going to be one that I'm probably going to want to try to get. But the Dark Fuse Solutions, yeah, another group that we'll be dealing with here in Undermine. Blizzard clarified the X45 Heartbreak Love Rocket drop rate and how it all works. So here it is. These are rare mounts, this and the new broom. If you have it already, congratulations. Go ahead and comment in the comments about how you got it on your first fucking drop, because that's what I see every time I freaking talk about this thing, and that shit just pisses me off. But anyways, the X45 Heartbreak. The way it works is you have a much higher chance to get this thing on the first attempt of the day on your WoW account worldwide, right? So any player, any character that you log in, you got one shot. Only one shot, and then the rest of your characters are doomed to probably not get this thing, because after that one kill for the day, the legacy drop rates are much, much lower. So you can kill this thing as many times as you want, but you have a much lower chance at getting it. New drops for the broom, interestingly enough, is only possible on your first attempt. So while the love rocket, you can eventually maybe get it if you keep killing this thing, the first attempt is the only one that counts towards getting the broom. There will be, and we'll see an increasing chance at the drop with each new day that the first attempt is completed. So again, one attempt per day on the broom mount, but the X45 love rocket, you can do multiple attempts, you just have a smaller chance of getting it. Yeah, true, yeah. Sam is bitter? Maybe. Yeah, maybe, just a little bit. Okay, the big news of the day, and I have some opinions on this shit, so buckle up, guys. Player housing, also known as player orgy circles for many of you on Moonguard. But here it is. Quick summary, 50 plots in a neighborhood, okay? So we're going to have, basically, you'll be able to get 50 homes in a single neighborhood. We'll talk about what those neighborhoods are, public and private. No requirements, no purchase costs, no lotteries, no upkeep, no repossession for your sublapsing. I can't believe this is actually a consideration in some of these games, but that's pretty crazy. Hundreds and hundreds of decorations and customizations via in-game rewards, but some items on the cash shop. Interestingly enough, we all knew this was going to happen. I talked about this a long time ago, that player housing will have cash shop integration, of course. And then hundreds and hundreds of decorations and customizations, and 2 housing zones available at launch, one for the Alliance and one for the Horde. Kind of sad to read this. Obviously, my prediction was wrong about player housing being in cities and stuff like that. That's how it works in Final Fantasy. Wow, that's crazy. I've heard a lot of good things about player housing in Final Fantasy, and I think, based on what I've read here, Final Fantasy should be shitting in their pants about how Blizzard's planning on doing player housing. But let's get into this and the reasons why. Fortifying your housing pillars. We'll talk about this stuff. We're excited to kick off the first look at housing in World of Warcraft and share some of our philosophies and plans for this new feature with you. First up, we're focusing on high-level design pillars for housing, as well as talking about a few key areas of housing as we lay the foundation, literally and figuratively, for future discussions. We have lots to cover. Let's jump in. So fortifying your housing pillars. So the main pillars, they're talking about like what this system is built on, right? They had their big, executives meeting. They're like, how do we want to do this? Obviously, Bobby Kodak's not in the room. Otherwise, it would just be, well, let's just have a credit card swipe at the door and they can't get into their home until they swipe their card. Thankfully, that's not the case. It looks like they're going to try to limit how pay to win this whole system could be or could become, but let's talk exactly about what they said here. So boundless self-expression. Our highest priority is allowing players to build a house that shows off their personal tastes of their warbands. And warbands is important here because it looks like you're going to only get one home per warband, which some people are going to be disappointed in. But anyways, it acts as a desired backdrop for roleplay, or just allows players to create something in a flight of fancy. Obviously, it's going to be something that people spend a lot of time in, which also could be controversial, right? No more city people. I mean, I feel like everyone's just going to be in their homes, but we'll talk about that when we talk about neighborhoods. The tool list should be easy enough for someone with no 3D experience to be comfortable to use successfully, but it should also be able to be powerful enough that players can surprise us and their creators or drill down to the tiniest details just right, to get them just right. So here's the thing. What I imagine, what I've talked about before, is the grid system that we have right now for our current customization of our UI. I feel like that system was a precursor for this. That system is going to be able to be used most likely to drag and drop things throughout your home. So if you've used it, if you haven't already, you basically enter edit mode, a grid enters on your screen, and then you can move things around. Same thing, but I think this is going to be using the 3D assets in the game to move things around. So we'll see all of that works out. I can't wait for player housing. Yeah, I think a lot of people can, Kale Sauce. Besides that, the gamut of decor options spans not just the cultures of Azeroth, but many expressions in World of Warcraft as well. So here we have the Orc Hut. I think a lot of people were a little bit disappointed with the fact that we're basically getting orcs and humans first off. They're going to iterate on this, I'm sure. We're going to have other races expressing their way through World of Warcraft housing, but for now, this is it. One interesting thing that I saw both in the human one and in the orc one is the treasure chest. I don't know if we're going to be able to loot our great vault from this, whether this is going to be your trading post chest or something else. Maybe it's just a wardrobe for transmogging and I'm just going too far with the thought process here. But interestingly enough, there is a treasure chest in each of these concept images, which I'm assuming is for a purpose. This doesn't look like it's just decor to me. Everything else in here looks like it's maybe achievement related, items you picked up, things you've done, profession related, who knows. But expression is the key here. They want people to be able to express themselves through this stuff. What is going on, OnlyCam? So these are pretty cool concept art here. Beyond that, the boundless self-expression, they want it to be deeply social, what I think is very important and was the big miss, right, on our, what's it called, freaking giant armored shit that we had back in Warlords of Draenor, our garrisons, that's what they were called. So garrisons were very much not social. They created a social, basically, void in the game where people were just sitting around in their garrisons, jerking off on their professions, picking up money all over the place, and just doing absolutely nothing else besides queuing from their garrisons. So that was a problem. And I hope you can, this will not be a thing in the game, but if people can just queue from their home for events and stuff like that, I can't see people leaving their homes, but we'll see. World of Warcraft is more fun with others, and housing should be no different. While players can enjoy housing purely on their own, it's a system designed at a fundamental level to encourage interaction, playing, and progressing with friends, neighborhoods, and guilds, and the wider community in a meaningful way. So they do understand that it's important to be social in this game. Now, not only because most WoW players are not social in real life, we are in fact degenerates, but being social in the game is what makes World of Warcraft an MMO, right? And I don't want player housing to take away from that. I don't want the cities to become ghost towns. That's why, for me, my suggestion was, hey, put the houses in the cities. We're not getting that. We're getting instance neighborhoods, essentially. So people are going to be in these neighborhoods rather than be in the cities, as long as the neighborhood doesn't offer every utility that a city does. Now, I'm assuming you'll be able to go from your house to a hub city pretty quickly. There could be portals there or something. But overall, the main thing is you're going to be socializing with the 50 or so people that are in your neighborhood, whether you picked them or they've been picked by the server. Sam, you better not be in my neighborhood. I'm going to be in your neighborhood. You just don't want to come to mine, right? Because it'll be dangerous. Now, we're going to create a degenerhood for sure, right? Where it's just all 50 G-gens. I don't know how I'm going to pick who's in it, what's going to happen with it, but we'll talk about that when we get to that stuff. Long-lasting journey. Housing is being built as an evergreen addition to the game, with its own roadmap, reaching across multiple patches and into future expansions. Housing isn't something players should expect to finish, but instead continually look forward to the next housing release, but be it new content or systems. This is a long-term commitment for us as developers and offers players rewards along the way. So there you go, players. Obviously, this is an evergreen feature. I can't imagine them sinking this much time into something that wasn't going to be. We already knew that. I do hope that the things we get in the player housing, whether it's decor or whatever, is expansion related. So say the next expansion is Midnight, right? It's very voidy in its theme. Maybe very elfy in its theme. I hope we get a lot of elf and void related items to put in our homes. Besides that, zoning into your home. So here it is. This is how the neighborhood is going to work. With the first iteration of these, you're going to have one Alliance and one Horde, with more possible places to live in the future. The Alliance zone is inspired by Elwyn Forest, with touches of Westfall and Duskwood, and the Horde one is inspired by Durotar, its coastline, and Ajara. So interestingly enough, I'm guessing that means we're going to get some new Elwyn Forest / Westfall Duskwood assets? That's the first thing I thought, because, you know, Elwyn Forest has its 2-bit trees and stuff like that, but it's one of the most beloved zones in the game, for me at least. So seeing Elwyn Forest maybe in a new version could be kind of cool. And then the Horde Durotar, same thing. A Durotar is a very beloved zone. Getting new assets for a Durotar zone or Durotar-esque looking zone could be very interesting to see. Now, what I imagine this looking like is, you guys know how we have the Darkmoon Fair, right? The Darkmoon Fair is like a portal / open world zone where you go into this instance zone, but in fact you still feel like you're in the open world when you're there. I imagine this whole neighborhood being very much like that, where we're in this instance zone, but it somewhat feels like we're in the open world. You got the open skybox and everything else, and you just feel like you're in another part of Elwyn Forest. No, I meant Sam Troit. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Detroit Sam. Okay, yeah, I see what you're doing there. That's what my neighborhood's going to be called. That's right. Don't cross 8 Mile in Elwyn Forest. Having many housing zones conflicts with the second pillar of designing a feature that is deeply social. In a world where players can live in many different zones, they become increasingly spread out, and even with aggressive sharding, aggressive sharding is a great one, the chance of seeing other players, much less interaction with them, drops quickly. So to me, the big solution here is just create one worldwide zone, right? create less server sharding and stuff like that. But that's not seemingly the direction they went. The reason why I wanted player housing in cities is because I felt like it would actually create more populations in cities, bring people back to the cities and stuff like that. But that's not the direction they went either. They're going for an instance zone, and hopefully, like I said, it depends on how much utility they give these homes. If there's a lot of utility, then a lot of players are going to be spending all their time in these zones. If not, maybe it'll create a hub portal to other cities. Who knows? Yeah, aggressive sharding sounds like a bad day. I don't disagree. Grove Street and WoW. Yeah, we'll have to see what this all means and what this street, or we'll talk about the concept art that comes up here later. But what these zones will look like and what it could mean for the game. Putting it bluntly, zones are a lot of work. We'd much rather do a great job with a small number of zones than do a passable job with a large number, which is, basically what happened with the Cataclysm expansion. We chose these as our starting zone points because of how iconic they are for their respective factions and how much they feel like home to so many players already. So here it is. This is the Alliance one. So I talked about it, the treasure chest right here. We see it's a very human-esque design, right? This is kind of the preview that we saw in that cinematic where the guy opened the door and walked in. This is what his home looked like. It was very much an Alliance-style, Stormwind-style house. So we'll see how this all plays out and whether or not we'll get more, or when we'll get more elven-looking stuff, blood elf stuff, troll stuff, and all that. Because very, very much right now, this is human and orc-style homes. Besides that, a home for everyone is part of the focus, a wide adoption. We want to ensure housing is available for everyone. Isn't this opposite what Final Fantasy does? I feel like this entire paragraph is a shot at Final Fantasy. If you want a house, you can have a house. No exorbitant requirements or high purchase costs, no lotteries, no onerous upkeep, and if your subscription lapses, you won't be repossessed. Your houses are also shared amongst your warband, with your different characters being able to come to as they see fit. So here's the thing. If you have an Alliance character and a Horde character on your account, you're going to have to pick. That's what it looks like. This is one house per account, and this is one zone per account. So if you're on your human character, you cannot choose to put your home in a Horde neighborhood. If you're on your Orc character, you cannot choose to put your home in an Alliance neighborhood. But if you choose to put your Horde character in the Horde neighborhood, your Alliance character will be put in that Horde neighborhood as well. That's how it's weird, I know. I don't know why they're doing it this way. Maybe it has to do with some server tech or something. But your entire warband will be bound to whichever decision you make. But you'll have to be on the correct faction when you make that decision. No Sam's in my neighborhood. So it's interesting. Speaking of neighborhoods, here's the concept art. So this is very telling. First off, what I'm wondering is they talk about no gold barrier to entry and everything, but clearly I would imagine that this home's plot right here will be much more desirable than, say, let me move my camera right here, this plot, right? Because you got the ocean view right here. I mean, it is what it is. It's a real estate market at the end of the day. So what's going to be the decision maker between who gets to live? Oh, there's even homes down here on the beach. If you see one right there behind the chat box. So what's going to be the decision maker here? Now, 50 plots, they're scattered all over the place. Somebody gets to live by a waterfall, and someone's got to live in the degen hut down here. I don't know what's going to be the decision maker between who gets to live where, how much gold it's going to cost to live in certain places. They talked about gold being not being a barrier to entry, but I'd imagine that the better plots are just going to cost more gold. Sam has to live in the cave, yeah. Horde Trojan horse inbound, basically, for the faction stuff, yeah. But this is a cool concept art. What I imagine, again, is potentially, Orgrimmar being off in the distance, but you walk through a portal just like maybe to Darkmoon Faire, and you end up in some kind of instance version of the zone. Feeling outdoor, but in fact being in an instance version of the game. Houses everywhere, it looks like. I'm sure the plots will be predetermined. I highly doubt that you're going to be able to just drop this home wherever the hell you want in this zone. It's going to be plots. They talked about being 50. There's a gate here, so maybe when you pour it in, you'll in fact start here and then walk in, or potentially start inside of your home. Those are going to be decisions that Blizzard probably makes in the coming whatever year or however long this is going to take. But here it is, the neighborhood that they talk about. Before we go, we want to mention the concept of neighborhoods as a small tease. Houses are organized into roughly 50 plot neighborhoods, letting players live next to each other, work together, and share in the rewards of being part of the neighborhood. Could you imagine the tickets that are going to get put into Blizzard if somebody hates their random neighbor they got put by, because there are public neighborhoods. Oh my god. And and WoW players could be babies at times. So I can't imagine like players just having issues with their neighbors and now GMs are having to deal with this shit in tickets. That's going to be fun. Anyways, neighborhoods are instants, but crucially also persist. So your neighborhood can be your neighbors can be your neighbors for years to come or until one of you moves. Neighborhoods also come in two flavors. So interesting that they mentioned moving. I wonder if you get sick of the Horde aesthetic, maybe you want to move to the Alliance if all of your shit gets picked up and moved, or if you got to start over. That's an interesting one too. I'm going to start HOA. I'm going to start an HOA. I hope you're Homer Simpson in my neighborhood. I hope we'll see how all that plays out. But here we go. Public neighborhoods, which the game servers are responsible for creating as needed and maintaining. And then private neighborhoods created by groups of friends or guilds to inhabit, progress, and customize together. Now, what I like about this is they say groups of friends or guilds, so it looks like you're not going to have to be in a guild to create a grouped neighborhood. Maybe you'll be able to create it through your community or something else, but I'm currently not in a guild. You guys know I don't want to make a guild. I just enjoy playing the game, and I don't want to have to, babysit people and OnlyFans my way through the game. So you won't have to be in a guild to do this. You can just create it with a group of friends. Now, how that group works, whether it's through a community or whatever, we'll have to see, but it looks like guilding will not be a requirement to have a private neighborhood. They go on to say here, well, so while an individual player can have a house, a community can have a neighborhood. Oh, there's my answer. I think community is what they're going to go with right there. So maybe I just keep reading and I'll learn some shit here. But it looks like, yeah, community neighborhoods. We do have our Pug community neighborhood. We'll have to create a degen. As I said, a degen-hood is the way I'm probably going to go with this. And pick your poison. Obviously, it's going to be Alliance. If you don't want to live on the Alliance side, go fuck yourself. I'm not going to go live in Durotar. It's just not my style. I want to go live in Elwynn Forest. So there it is. We'll have to see how all of this ends up playing out in the end. But this is wonderful. Beautiful thing that they laid out here. I'm not a player housing person. I never asked for it. But I sure as fuck am I going to participate in it. Now, I'm moving on to what will be the final thing here in today's news cycle. 11.1.5. Internal testing has begun. That's right. If you're wondering what this patch is about, this is essentially the transition patch to Midnight. This is the patch that's supposed to bring us the horrific visions returning and everything else. This is the one that basically, to me, kicks off the storyline for Midnight. So this is the beginning of the end for the War Within. 11.1.5 is supposed to hit us based on the timeline here. It looks like March or April. Now, I still expect 11.1 to hit end of February. So expecting this, maybe give it whatever the 8 weeks is, you can imagine that we're going to get 11.5. Yeah, in that, spring, April timeline. So again, what is it bringing? Well, it's bringing the Horrific Visions Revisited, Nightfall content, new content Nightfall, again, which sounds very midnighty, and then Children's Week update. So we'll see what actually happens with 11.1.5. It's not currently testable or data mineable, but Blizzard has moved on from 11.1, which means we should be getting it soon, with testing now beginning on 11.1.5, and that is all in terms of news.